What's up guys, it's me Jeremy. Across over 120 champions, there's no denying that League has some that are poorly designed. And what makes a champion poorly designed tends to be a bit subjective, but I like to look at it purely from a gameplay standpoint. A poorly designed champion is one that creates a frustrating gameplay experience, usually by lacking counterplay or by having unfair mechanics, and it leaves players left feeling like there was nothing that they could do and that they just got cheated by the mechanics of the champion. It's worth noting that just because a champion is poorly designed does not make them overpowered, and a large majority of these champions have received extensive nerfs due to their kits being poorly designed. Rather, it makes the champion anti-fun and leads to a poor gameplay experience, and so they're very unhealthy champions to exist within the game in their current state. Anyways, let's get started. At number 10, it's Vi, and when we take a look at her ultimate, it's no surprise. The ability has no counterplay whatsoever, and it makes it impossible to outplay a Vi pretty much every time. She gets a free pass to stick on you and knock you up, and can easily burst you down with the help from a teammate, or even by herself if she's ahead. Vi is a total nightmare for any carry and becomes super frustrating to face since all she has to do is click on you and you have no chance. There's no outplay potential, and more importantly, there's no skill involved whatsoever in the interaction of facing a Vi. However, she can get outplayed by someone like Morgana, who has a spell shield, but depending on champion mechanics is just flat out not an acceptable form of counterplay, since it's easy to just ban out the champion, as well as the fact that you can't always get the counter pick, and you should not be forced to play a specific champion just because your opponent is playing someone who has a broken kit, as that creates a very limited gameplay experience for the players. Next up at number 9, it's Rise, with an insane power spike that takes place in his passive and a crazy long root duration and ridiculous DPS added into the fact that he scales well with pure tank items due to the mana scaling on his abilities, and Rise has always been a crazy monster of a champion. I personally thought it would get better when they made his Q a skill shot, but the permanent snare that is targeted that happens during his passive is pretty ridiculous and very unfair to play against. It's safe to say that his rework has not been an amazing success, but to be fair, he wasn't too much better before the rework either. So much of his strength being based around targeted abilities results in a kit that unfortunately lacks quite a bit of counterplay and feels totally broken to play against. And at number 8, it's Tryndamere. His ultimate creates quite a frustrating experience to face, since making him unkillable with no counterplay other than to kite him out and hope that he doesn't kill you in those 5 seconds is quite a tough experience, especially in a one-on-one scenario. As well, his nice sustained mobility and crazy chase potential due to his slow combos well to make him a ridiculous duelist, especially if you add in the damage reduction on his W. But the thing is that he's a ridiculous duelist because most of the time there's nothing you can do to outplay him in a one-on-one scenario, rather than him actually being able to outplay you. And lastly, he's the only champion in the game who can naturally get crit chance from his kit without any outside help, and being crit in lane randomly is super annoying and leads to you feeling like you got cheated with the randomness and RNG of Tryndamere's crit chance. And at number 7, it's Kayle. Quite similar to Tryndamere, her ultimate has no counterplay other than to just try to avoid and kite out the target until it runs out, and with it being castable on any of her allies, if you are playing a champion who relies on killing another champion to be successful, Kayle is going to be super annoying for you to play against. And to top it all off, her ultimate has quite a low cooldown, allowing her to totally abuse the ability. Kayle's sustain and kiting is also fantastic, and with the new Devour item, she's in a ridiculous spot right now. Her E being an on-hit effect means that any item that scales with on-hit effects for her is going to be completely broken, since it's really going to increase the damage of her E, and the new Devourer does exactly that. And by applying on-hit effects as well, and with AP and AD scaling in her kit, it leaves her open to being able to abuse almost any powerful item that comes along. Next up at number 6, it's Annie. Annie's in a spot right now where she essentially has a You Die Now button, where she can instantly one-shot any carry with a very easy and mechanically simple combo, leaving you feel like you got outplayed by a champion that takes literally no skill to play as. She kinda just spaghettis all over you and you die instantly, and with the stun in her kit, there's not much you can do to outplay her, especially since she can use her Q as a targeted stun to give you no chance to outplay her kit. Burst damage is quite frustrating to face, but most champions that have burst damage involve skill shots or low ranges or super long cooldowns or some sort of major weakness that allows you to outplay the combo, of which Annie has none of. And so her burst damage combo lacks weaknesses, making it difficult to outplay her as a whole and leaves you feeling like you didn't get outplayed at all, just that the champion is stupid. At number 5, it's Olaf, and with an ultimate that makes him unkiteable, massive true damage, a potent slow that can be on a super short cooldown if you can pick up your axes, and some high damage that scales off of his health, allowing him to build super tanky and still go crazy, and Olaf has been a ridiculous champion for any carry to face, while having a total lack of counterplay due to his ultimate. If an Olaf gets a nice lead, he can literally run in 1v5 and still pick up more than one kill. His dive potential is ridiculous and totally unfair for anyone facing him, and the only real counterplay is someone who can generate terrain, like Jarvan or Anivia, but similar to the Vi Morgana interaction, champion-specific mechanics is not an acceptable form of counterplay. If you played AD carry back when Olaf was strong, you'll remember that he was a huge nightmare to face, and his ult made him one of the only tanks in the game that is truly unkiteable while still having crazy damage built into their kit to kill you with. And at number 4 we have Yorick. Yorick has always been the classic case of a frustrating experience in League, and throughout time he's really defined what it means to have a kit that is anti-fun. He has no real counterplay in his kit, with targeted abilities, massive sustain and harass, and ridiculously low cooldowns, and high ranges with mixed damage and a super annoying slow, and trading with him becomes impossible, and so you're left feeling like the laning phase is entirely unplayable, since he gets to outdamage and outsustain you throughout all points of the lane with just his W and his E. And the fact that the ghouls are super hard to click on is also super annoying and just ties into his whole kit, creating a really unfun experience to play against. If any of you played top lane back in Season 3 when Yorick was actually popular, he was definitely the champion that kept you up at night and just made you hate League of Legends. If you're enjoying the top 10 list, just a reminder to tap that like button to help support me. At number 3, it's Fizz. His high amount of burst damage, insane mobility, as well as his ridiculous untargetability on an 8-second cooldown has definitely led to some rage-induced moments. His ability to be slippery and escape tough situations is unmatched and is honestly just flat out unfair at times. If you're playing an immobile champion, Fizz's mobility is going to be a complete nightmare, and even if you are playing a mobile champion, his BS untargetability is going to leave you quite frustrated. His kit most certainly lacks counterplay, and the fact that he has a button that says you can't kill me on an 8-second cooldown is stupid as hell. And the bruiser builds popping up where he becomes a tanky monster essentially makes him unkillable and ridiculously annoying to play against. And on the other hand, the damage builds with Fizz are also insane, since his mobility gives him a free pass in pretty much all situations. And at number 2 we have Rengar. Throughout his time, Rengar has defined what it means for a champion to be impossible to balance. His ridiculously broken and overloaded kit lacks counterplay completely, as stealth is a really unfair mechanic to face, and Rengar is likely the most frustrating champion in the entire game to play against. He jumps out of nowhere and just one-shots you, and you're left wondering what the hell happened and why this champion exists in the game. He's gone through loads of balance changes and is a prime example of a kit that is impossible to balance due to the mechanics that he has built into him, with stealth, an amazing gap closer, sustained high damage, crowd control, and absolutely ridiculous snowballing potential. The exclamation point that they added in was nowhere near enough counterplay to make him have a fair gameplay experience, and Rengar has always been known for being a really stupid champion to play against in general. And taking home the #1 spot, it's Poppy. Now, she caps out the list as the last champion that has an ability that makes them invincible, but Poppy's has two main advantages over the others. Her ultimate lasts for 8 seconds, longer than any other invincibility effect in the game, and it's also the only effect that makes a champion immune to both damage and crowd control effects for an extended duration. So her ultimate leaves her both unkillable and unkiteable, and gives her a damage amplification to top it all off with her solid burst damage and strong gap closers, which allow her to easily stick to and kill her target, and so you're left with essentially the definition of what it means to lack counterplay. Riot themselves have stated that they purposefully are going to leave Poppy in a weak, over-nerfed state due to the fact that her kit is so inherently broken, unfair, and just flat out unhealthy, and not to mention her ridiculous passive that just adds more into the fact that she is already unkillable. Fortunately, we don't have to play against Poppy too often because I'm sure the community would go crazy if she was ever actually strong in the current state that she is in.
Back of Uber News, halfway on my two shoes, engaged into a game that he sure to lose. Major symptomatic fecal flaws due to twisting gutter flips and bats of both